All right, so the jurors are here, ready to go, but I know I told you, Mr. Yannetti, I'd hear you at sidebar on this, so why don't we come to sidebar? All right, we'll bring the jurors in. We'll take a few minutes. Tony, do you want me to step out? Okay. Do you need to come in?
All right. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable Beverly Cannoni, the Justice of the Superior Court, holding in Dedham, within and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is in session. Please be seated.
Good morning again, counsel. Good morning. Good morning, jurors. Good morning. Thank you. So I do have to ask you those three questions. Were you all able to follow my instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? No. Thank you very much. So is there a new witness this morning?
Yes. Good morning, Your Honor.
Morning.
The defense calls Brian Laughlin.
Okay.
Step up, take the part, and raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear the evidence given to the court and jury in the case now hearing for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Good morning.
Good morning.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Good morning, sir. In a good loud voice, would you please state your name and spell your last name?
Sure, it's Brian Loughran, Loughran.
In what town do you live, sir?
I live in Canton.
Where did you grow up?
In Canton,
How long have you lived in Canton?
all my life.
Did you attend Canton Public Schools?
Yes, I did.
Through which grade?
I graduated from Canton High School,
What year did you graduate?
1990.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes,
How many?
I have two brothers, one sister.
What are their names?
Christopher, Michelle, and Michael.
And where do you fit in the order?
I fit in between Michelle and Michael.
You're the second youngest.
Correct.
How old is your brother Michael?
Michael is 53.
What does he do for work?
He owns his own driving school, and he was a member of the select board.
And you say he owns his own driving school. In which town?
Canton,
And you mentioned that he's a member of the select board. For which town?
town of Canton.
And what is the select board in Canton?
It's the governing body for the town.
Having grown up in Canton, are you familiar with the Albert brothers?
Yes, I am.
Which ones?
All of them.
Can you name them?
Brian, Chris, Brendan, Keith, Kevin, and Tim.
Of those Albert brothers, whom do you know the best?
Chris.
How close in age are Chris and you?
Very close. I believe I'm 2 years older than Chris.
How did you become familiar with Chris?
I went to elementary school, I went to middle school, and then he graduated from a different high school.
Was there any other relationship between the two of you beyond being classmates?
Yes, eventually I ended up working for Chris, delivering pizzas.
How old were you approximately when you started delivering pizzas for Chris Albert?
About 26.
Do you remember the name of his pizza establishment?
Yes, D&E Pizza,
Where is that located?
Canton Center.
How many years did you deliver pizzas for D&E Pizza and Chris Albert?
About 8 years.
Prior to January 29th of 2022, were you friendly with Chris Albert?
Yes.
You previously mentioned that your brother Michael is a town selectman. What political office does Chris Albert hold?
Chris Albert is also a select board member.
And Chris Albert is Brian Albert's brother, obviously.
Yes.
So your brother and Brian Albert's brother are both town selectmen together.
Correct.
How did you become familiar with Kevin Albert?
Through D&E Pizza and
And I'm
interact.
sorry, you said through D&E Pizza?
Yes. And interactions with the DPW, doing details and stuff.
Okay. First, with regard to D&E Pizza, you said there were interactions with Kevin Albert relating to that pizza shop. What type of interactions?
He would come in, I'd be, friendly, I'd say hello, or there'd be deliveries to the Alberts residents, and I would, make those deliveries.
You mentioned the DPW. I didn't ask you what you did for work, sir. What do you do?
I work for the DPW. I work in the highway division.
And the DPW stands for Department of Public Works?
Yes,
For which town?
town of Canton.
And what are your duties, or strike that, around January and late January of 2022, what were your duties for the DPW?
I would plow.
And how long had you worked, or to this day, how long have you worked for the DPW?
20 years.
Now, as a DPW employee, how much contact do you have with the police department?
We have varying jobs that require police details.
So
We
you're
would-
doing work, and there has to be a police officer there to oversee and direct traffic and things of that nature?
Correct.
How often have you worked in that capacity with Kevin Albert from the Canton Police Department?
About a dozen times.
And what was the nature of your relationship with Kevin Albert before January 29th of 2022?
Through D&E Pizza, I would, the Alberts usually had family functions on a weekend, and I would make deliveries.
Can these last few jurors hear the witness? I just want to make sure everybody can hear. Okay. Now, what was how did you become familiar with Brian Albert?
Again, through D&E Pizzas and deliveries
Deliveries where?
to his residence.
Do you know what his residence is or what the address is?
I do.
What is it?
34 Fairview Drive.
What was your understanding of what Brian Albert did for a living?
My understanding, he was a police officer for the city of Boston.
Now, you say that you made deliveries to 34 Fairview Road. How often, and was there a particular day of the week that you delivered more than others?
It's usually once a week, and it was usually on Sundays.
And that was to 34 Fairview Road?
Correct.
As of January of 2022, how many decades had the Albert family lived at that address, if you know?
As far as I couldn't give you a year, but I know as long as I've been in Canton, they've lived at that residence.
All right, now directing your attention to January 28th and 29th of 2022, were you on duty as a snowplow driver that night and early morning?
Yes.
When did you learn that you would be on duty?
Early January 28th, we were notified that we had a 2:30 start time.
And that would be 2:30 a.m.
A.M.
on January 29th?
Yes.
How did you learn that you would be on duty?
Our supervisors for the DPW would notify us.
Who was your supervisor?
William Walsh.
And what instructions were you given in terms of when you were to report?
We were to report at 2:30 in the morning and prepare our trucks for plowing.
What time did you actually get to the DPW that morning?
I got there about 2:15.
And when you say you got there, where did you go?
160 Bolivar Street.
And is that Bolivar?
Yes.
What is 160 Bolivar Street?
It is the DPW garage.
And when you go there, is there a requirement that you punch in?
Yes.
Did you punch in those early morning hours?
Yes.
Who was there when you got there?
Other DPW employees and William Walsh.
William Walsh being your supervisor?
Yes.
Were you assigned a specific route those early morning hours?
Yes.
What route was that?
Route 11.
What streets does Route 11 encompass?
Route 11 encompasses Cedar Crest from Dedham Street to the end. It encompasses everything from Kings Road to Chapman Street.
And streets in between as well?
Yes.
And what street is in between Cedar Crest and Chapman?
There would be Spring Lane and Fairview.
What truck or snowplow were you assigned in those early morning hours?
I was assigned truck 30
And does that have a particular nickname?
Yes, it's considered a Franken truck.
You said Franken truck,
Yes,
like Frankenstein.
yes.
Why was it nicknamed Franken truck?
It was a very uncomfortable truck, and it had a lot of mismatch of parts to make it more convenient for the drivers.
I'd like to show you some photos, sir. If I may, please.
Okay.
Mr. Loughran, I've placed 4 photographs in front of you. If you could just familiarize yourself with them and look up at me when you're done. Do you recognize what is depicted in those photos?
Yes, I do.
And did you take those photos
I did.
at my request?
Yes.
What do those photos depict?
They depict the inside of truck 30 or Franken truck.
And is there one that actually depicts the outside from the front as well?
Yes.
Do those photos fairly and accurately depict Frankentruck as it looked on or about January 29th of 2022?
Yes.
I would offer those, Your Honor.
I have no objection to any of the photos.
All right, thank you.
Perhaps they could be marked with the next exhibit number A through D.
Yes. And once that's done, you can feel free to publish.
Thank you very much.
Exhibits 211A through 211D.
Thank you. And with the court's permission, Mr. Wolk, if you would publish them one at a time in the order we discussed. I imagine that is 211A, Madam Court Reporter?
Ms. Gianetti, why don't you take the photos so you'll know what
Oh.
they are?
Great idea. Okay, could you explain what 211A depicts for this jury?
That is the front of truck 30, Franken truck, and it's depicting the 2 mirrors on the right and left side of the fenders.
Okay. What about the next one, please, Mr. Wolf? Can you identify, this is 211B, sir.
Yes, that's the inside of the Franken truck looking out the windshield.
As if you were seated in the driver's seat?
Correct.
Next photo, please. This is 211C. What does this depict?
This is depicting on the range that I would see seated in the front seat, looking out the windshield, and depicting how much I'll be able to see.
Okay, and this would be more toward the left side in front of you as you're seated in the driver's seat?
Correct.
All right, next photo, please. This is 211D. Could you explain this to the jury?
Again, I'm sitting in the front seat of the Franken truck, and I'm taking a picture out the right side of the windshield, again, depicting on how much I can see out it.
Thank you. Okay, we can take those down and put the lights on. Okay, so you previously testified that you got to the garage about 2:15 a.m. on January 29th. Could you explain to the jury, what do you do when you get there at 2:15 a.m.?
So at 2:15, we do a simple circle check to make sure that there are no defects with the truck. We go ahead and we make sure it has plenty of diesel. And then I put, any supplies that I may have for the night, planning on an overnight shift. And then I get in the truck and I proceed to my route.
And what type of supplies are you talking about, sir?
Any types of drinks, food, anything, snacks.
Preparing for a long night?
Yes.
The circle check, does that mean what it sounds like, where you sort of take a circle around the vehicle?
Yes, we're trying to make sure that the truck is safe, that there is no defects that would hinder the job ahead of it of being able to plow.
And when you did the circle check in those early morning hours, was there anything unusual that you found?
None.
Were you comfortable driving the snowplow that night?
Yes,
And you mentioned that you make sure it's filled with diesel fuel so you're good for the night.
correct.
Now, what lighting is there on the truck facing outward?
I have 4 lights. I have the initial headlights, and then I have 2 plow lights that are on either side of the fenders.
And
And then I have marking lights, and then I have work lights in the back for the sander.
Okay. If you recall the one photo that showed the truck from the outside, were the 2 plow lights visible in that photo?
Yes, they were.
Were the headlights visible in that photo?
Yes, they were.
Could we display that one more time, Your Honor, to have him point that out? Is there a pointer there, sir?
No, there is not.
Okay. Could you describe on 211A where those plow lights are?
Plow lights are just above the grill on the right side and left side.
Okay. And would it be fair to say the plow lights appear to be a clear lens and then an orange lens on either side?
Yes.
And the headlights, sir, where are those located?
They are to the right and left of the grill, and they're underneath.
Okay. And those are located just to the right of the grill in terms of as we're looking at 211A?
Yes.
Okay. We can take that down and put the lights back on? Now, do you recall whether or not, oh, strike that. You also mentioned marking lights. Where are those?
Marking lights are on the top of my truck, along with a beacon light on top of the truck.
And what is a beacon light?
Beacon light is exactly what it looks like. It's a light that just illuminates and it goes around in circles.
And the marking lights, what do they do?
They're similar to driving without your headlights. They're just there to mark the truck so that it's more visible for residents who may be driving and not paying attention.
And where does the lighting face those marking lights?
Front.
Okay, so in terms of the light that strictly goes toward the front, you have marking lights, plow lights, and headlights, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall whether, when you did your circle check, you checked out whether those lights were all working?
Correct.
And were they working?
Yes.
When all of those lights are on, how bright is it in front of your truck?
Extremely bright, almost if I had a spotlight.
And that's facing straight out.
Correct.
What about facing diagonally out front?
Again, as far as the lights will illuminate.
And then on either side, directly out to the side, how far can you see?
About 5-6 feet.
Okay. So you see more when you're looking straight out and then diagonally out, correct?
Correct.
You can see farther?
Correct.
Now, how about in terms of you being situated in the vehicle? How high up is the driver's seat?
Driver's seat is an air ride seat, so it can adjust accordingly.
What is an air ride seat?
It is adjusted by air, and it can go up or down depending on the driver's.
And how long did it take you to do the circle check, to put your snacks in the car and water, and to make sure the car or the truck is filled with diesel fuel?
About 5 minutes.
All right, so if you get there at 2:15, is it fair to say that you're ready to go on the road somewhere around 2:20 or 2:25 a.m.?
Correct.
And when you did start to go out on the road at around that time, how was the seat adjusted?
I adjusted the seat up so that my knees would hit the bottom of the steering wheel.
How big is that steering wheel on the truck?
It's fairly large. It's larger than a regular passenger vehicle. It's very large.
As of January 29th of 2022, were there any obstructions on any part of the windshield that would prevent you from having a clear view in any direction through the windshield?
No.
Once you got into that truck in those early morning hours, how far could you see in front of your truck?
As far as my eyes would let me see.
And how far could you see diagonally?
Diagonally, probably, is again, as far as my eyes would let me see.
All right. Now, you get on the road. When you plow, is there a particular method that you use?
Yes.
Describe that.
I start in the middle of the road and work to the right, angling the plow to the right.
Are you familiar with the term ring row right?
Yes.
Could you explain that to the jury, please?
Or ring road to the right is the amount of snow that's coming off the plow, creating a row. We angle everything to the right so that it does not impede on traffic on the left.
Right. So if you had gone in the other direction, you'd be putting snow right in the opposite lane of travel, right?
Correct.
So you always go to the right.
Correct.
What part of the road, once you hit the roads, do you plow first? What part of the road?
I start at the yellow line and I work to the curb line.
Why do you plow the middle of the road first?
Again, I want to ring road to the right, and I want to be able to give a bigger swath of space for first responders.
And generally, after going up a street or a road that you plow, when do you come back down the same street?
Immediately after I'm done.
Now, you mentioned Route 11, your route that night. You mentioned that it takes you to Cedar Crest.
Correct.
Once you leave the DPW garage to go on your route, Route 11, how long does it take you to get to any part of Cedar Crest?
About 10 minutes.
May we display actually, it's Exhibit 49. Do we have access to Exhibit 49?
What is it?
It's just a map.
Okay.
And if we can't put our hands on it quickly, I can just display it on the screen.
Is it in evidence?
It is.
You can put it
Okay,
on the
thank you,
screen.
Ron. If you put up Exhibit 49 and maybe zoom in so we just see, well, I think it is as zoomed in as it's going to go. Is that true, Mr. Wilk, to get, okay. Maybe zoom in on the top part of the map, if you would. Perfect. All right. So are you able to see that map from where you are?
Yes, I can.
And by the way, do you wear corrective lenses?
Yes, I do.
What do you wear?
I wear glasses, and when it's inclement weather, I wear contacts.
So on the night in question, when you went out on your route that night, were you wearing glasses or contacts?
Contacts.
What are you wearing today?
Contacts.
You've testified in a prior proceeding regarding this matter last year, correct?
Yes.
What did you show up with that day?
Glasses.
And what's your difference? What is the difference in your ability to see the screen with your glasses or your contacts?
My contacts makes things a little bit more brighter, allowing my eyes to see better
You have
with
more
the
difficulty
contacts.
seeing distances with your glasses?
Correct.
All right. Any problem seeing that screen here today?
None.
All right. What does that depict?
That depicts my route. Cedar Crest, Dew Lane, Spring Lane, and I'm not able to read the one underneath Spring Lane. Just
Certainly it's a portion of your route, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, you see where it says Cedar Crest, right?
Yes.
And you see the red dot there?
Yes.
Does that red dot refresh your memory or orient you, I should say, as to what road that red dot is on?
Yes.
And what road is that?
That would be Fairview.
All right. Now, when you hit Cedar Crest Road, are you in that area of Cedar Crest, or are you in a different area of Cedar Crest when you first come upon Cedar Crest Road?
When I first come on, I'm coming in at the beginning of Cedar Crest, which is at Dedham Street in Cedar Crest.
Okay. And how long a road is Cedar Crest before you get to the area of Exhibit 49?
I would say that's about a mile and a half.
And how long does it take you to plow Cedar Crest before you get to this area on January 29th of 2022?
About 10 minutes.
All right. How much of that 1.5 mile or so stretch of road did you plow when you first encountered it?
I plowed the entire street.
If we could zoom out, please. All right. And when you're driving on Cedar Crest Road, are you driving toward that red, Fairview Road that you've identified?
Yep.
Coming in from the right portion of the map or the left portion of the map?
I'm coming from the right side of the map.
All right. And so you start about 1.5 miles down the road to the right, which is off this map, correct?
Correct.
And you say it takes you about 10 minutes to get to the area of Fairview.
Yes.
So would Fairview be on your right or your left when you first encounter it?
On my left.
And when you hit Fairview Road that first time, what do you do?
I go all the way to the very end of Cedar Crest, turn
way?
around in the cul-de-sac, and then head back up towards Fairview.
Okay, so you're passing Fairview on your left,
Yes.
plowing further, and then turning around and plowing back.
Yes.
And when you came back to the intersection of Cedar Crest and Fairview, what did you do?
I take a right.
And how familiar were you with 34 Fairview Road on that day,
Very, very familiar.
having delivered pizzas there for years?
And then having grown up in that neighborhood.
Were you friendly with the Alberts growing up?
Mostly with Chris, but, I was cordial with the boys.
All right. And when you entered Fairview Road from Cedar Crest for the first time on your route, would 34 Fairview be on your right or your left?
On my right.
And can you give the jury your best estimate of when, or what time was it when you first encountered 34 Fairview Road on January 29th of 2022?
About 2:40, 2:45
That would be AM?
a.m.
And when you were passing 34 Fairview Road or encountering it at that point, what did you know about who lived there?
I knew the Alberts lived there, and I knew that Brian Albert was a police officer, first responders.
Now, aside from the lighting on your truck, were you aware of whether there were any street lights in the area of 34 Fairview?
Yes.
Could you describe those?
Sure, there's one before you get to 34 Fairview driveway, and there's one after Fairview's driveway.
Do you have a memory as to whether or not those street lights were working on January 29th of 2022?
I do not have a memory of that.
But in any case, how much of the lighting of your Franken truck was illuminated at that time?
All my lights were working.
So you're now driving up Fairview Road, and 34 Fairview's on your right. Taking into account the lighting conditions that existed, especially on your truck, how much of the front lawn of 34 Fairview could you see?
I could see all the way to the front door.
What obstructions were there at the time when you first passed the Alberts residence?
None.
Were you familiar with the area of the flagpole on the left side of the property?
Yes.
Now, when you are plowing, sir, where is your attention focused?
My attention's focused out the front window, to the right and to the left.
Why?
I am looking for pedestrians. I'm looking for residents that may be backing out, not aware that I'm there, and God forbid, animals.
How much of the time that you're plowing are you scanning the road?
All the time.
Now, as you're passing 34 Fairview, could you see the area of the flagpole at 2:45 in the morning, sir?
Yes.
What was on the ground on the Alberts lawn at that point in the area of the flagpole?
Nothing.
Did you see a 6'1", 216-pound man lying on that lawn?
No.
Now, after plowing Fairview with the Alberts residence to your right, what do you do?
I go to the very end, take a left on the Chapman Street, back down Chapman Street, and then take a left back onto Fairview.
And are you plowing the whole time?
Yes.
So you get to, in this diagram, Exhibit 49, we don't have to turn the lights off, I think we can see it. You're traveling in a down direction, correct?
Correct.
And you would hit Chapman Street, is that fair to say that's at the bottom?
Correct.
You do some type of three-point turn and go back down Fairview?
Yes.
How long does it take you to get from 34 Fairview the first time to get to Chapman Street?
Maybe 5-10 minutes.
And then how long does it take you to get from Chapman Street back down so that you're now passing 34 Fairview again?
Again, about 5-10 minutes.
And when you're coming back down, what side of the road is 34 Fairview?
On my left.
When you pass 34 Fairview at that time, are there any obstructions preventing you from seeing the front lawn?
None.
Was there any difference in the lighting on your truck when you were coming back down?
No.
Where is your attention focused when you're passing 34 Fairview on your left?
Again, out the front, right and left.
And how much of that front lawn are you able to see on 34 Fairview when you're coming back down from Chapman?
I can see everything. I can see right up to the front door.
What did you see on the front lawn of 34 Fairview on January 29th of 2022 when you're making the second pass by 34 Fairview in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
All right, now, you've made an up and down pass, sir, correct?
Yes.
Once you pass 34 Fairview for that first up and down pass, where do you go?
I then go do Spring Lane, and I do that top and bottom.
And is there a point in time when you come back to the area of Fairview Road?
Yes.
That second time now that you're coming back, I'm counting the up and down pass as the first time.
Okay.
You with me?
Yep.
That second time now that you're coming back, about how long is it after the first time?
About 45 minutes.
So now it's about what time that you're coming for the second time to this area?
3:30.
And when you come back to the area of Fairview Road, this second time, are you on the Cedar Crest side, which is on the top of Exhibit 49, or the Chapman side, which is on the bottom? Take that left, or did you do something else?
I did not take the left. At that point, I could have taken the left. I can make a decision depending on how much snow there was on the ground. I ended up going all the way to the end as if the first time.
All right, and you did your same turnaround in the cul-de-sac?
Correct.
And now you're approaching the intersection of Cedar Crest and Fairview again, correct?
Yes.
What do you do?
I take the right onto Fairview.
How was the weather at 3:30 in the morning when you're now in that area of Fairview and Cedar Crest?
It's snowing fairly hard now.
Do you recall how much snow? Recall how much snow was on the ground at that point?
Maybe 2-3 inches.
And at about 3:30 in the morning, how far could you see in front of you? Again, straight and diagonally in front of you,
As far as my eyes would let me see.
as a result of the lighting on your truck?
Correct.
Now, you take the right onto Fairview. Describe for the jury what you see in the road at that point.
As I make my right onto Fairview, I notice that there's a vehicle on the right-hand side, roughly in the area of the flagpole, in front of 34 Fairview.
Okay. And did you make note of what type of vehicle that was?
Yes,
What type of vehicle was that?
a Ford Edge.
What direction was that vehicle parked when you saw it?
It was parked nose going up Fairview.
Toward Chapman?
Yes,
So you're coming up from behind it?
correct.
You see the rear of that vehicle?
Yes,
And was it parked adjacent to the Albert property, or was it across the street from the Albert property?
adjacent to the Albert family.
And how close to the area of the flagpole was that Ford Edge parked at 3:30 in the morning?
I can't give you an exact measurement, but looking at the front door, it was about 3 feet to the left of the front door in the area of the flagpole, so in between the front door and the flagpole.
Now, what caused you to remember that there was a Ford Edge parked at 3:30 outside the Albert's residence that night?
For as long as I can remember, they have never parked a vehicle in front of their house. They've always had enough ample parking in the driveway.
What policies or protocols of the DPW are in force when vehicles are parked on the street or the road during a snow emergency?
There is no parking allowed. We are supposed to notify our supervisor when there is a vehicle in the way. At that point, the supervisor will make attempt to call the resident or have the police show up at the resident. And then if they can't get the car removed, the car gets towed.
Sir, did you follow protocol that night?
I did not.
Why not?
Knowing the Albert family, knowing that there was a first responder, I gave them respect and opted not to follow procedures.
How did the presence of that Ford Edge parked on the side of the road affect your direction of travel?
I had to go around the vehicle.
How did you maneuver around it?
I had to maneuver to the left, go up, and then maneuver back right into my lane, and then continue up Fairview.
And at any point when you were maneuvering to the left and then angling back to the right, could you see part of the front lawn of the Alberts?
Yes,
Were you able to see any part of the area around the flagpole?
yes, as I maneuvered back right.
And when you maneuvered back right and saw that area, what, if anything, did you see on the ground in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
All right. So now you've passed 34 Fairview again. Where do you go?
I go back to the top of Chapman, and again, I do a left and a right, and head back down Fairview.
Another three-point turn.
Correct.
So now you're doing your second up and down, correct?
Correct.
All right. So you then enter Fairview again, coming back down from Chapman. And how long does it take you to get back down to the area of 34 Fairview?
Again, about 5-10 minutes.
Now, you are now approaching 34 Fairview, and it's on your right or your left this time.
Again, it's on my left.
What, if anything, did you see in the road at that point?
Again, I saw the Ford Edge in the road.
Now it's on your left side?
Yes,
Did it appear to be in the identical position as when you came up the street toward Chapman?
yes.
How much of the area of the flagpole were you able to see this time as you're coming back down from Chapman?
It was obstructed, so I wasn't able to see as much as the first time, but I was still able to see the flagpole.
What did you see on the ground in the area of the flagpole at now 3:35, 3:40 in the morning?
I saw nothing.
All right, so now you've done your second up and down pass, correct?
Correct.
Where do you go?
I go back out on the Cedar Crest, and I continue to do the rest of my route.
Now, at this point in time, did you do more of your route or spend more time away than you did between the first and second time?
I did more of my route staying away from Fairview.
And about how long did it take you before you came back to the area of Fairview Road?
About 3 hours.
So what is your best estimate of this third time that you're now approaching Fairview Road?
About 6:15
And that'd be AM
a.m.
on January 29th?
Yes.
Now, this time when you approached Fairview Road, did you come from the Cedar Crest side or the Chapman side?
I came from Chapman Street side.
And when you turned, did you turn left or right from Chapman Street to get down to Fairview?
I turned right.
And once you turned right, did something unusual happen?
Yes, I noticed there were blue lights behind me, forcing me to pull over to the side of the road.
Did you recognize the vehicles that had, or vehicle? I didn't ask you if there was more than one, but did you recognize what type of vehicle or vehicles there were?
Yes, they were police vehicles.
Which vehicle was traveling more quickly, the police vehicle or Franken truck?
The police vehicles.
What were you doing with your snowplow after the police passed you?
I continued down Fairview.
Coming down Fairview, did you actually lose sight of the police cruiser that had passed
I
you?
did.
How many side streets are there when you're coming down Fairview from Chapman Street?
3.
What are they?
Wyndham, Old Ridge Hill, and then Carriage Lane.
Now, you're now coming down Fairview Road. What did you notice ultimately in front of you in the road?
I noticed the police cars had the road blocked off and preventing me from going to Cedar Crest.
And with regard to the lighting on those police... With regard to the lighting on those police vehicles as the road was blocked off, could you describe that for the jury?
Sure, they had all their blue lights on, and they were parked blocking the road, the entire road. I couldn't get through.
How well lit was it in the area where the police were?
Very well lit.
So you're now confronted with a blocked road. What do?
I turn around at Carriage Lane, and I continue to do that road, and then I exit Carriage Lane and go to the left.
All right, and going to the left would send you back toward Chapman Street, correct?
Correct.
And once you leave the area of Fairview Road, how long does it take you to come back down to Fairview Road to finish the plowing that you didn't do the first time?
As soon as the police were able to leave the area, I was able to finish that area.
Do you recall what time you finished your shift on January 29th?
I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
No worries. Do you remember if it was daylight out at that time?
It was daylight.
Okay. Now, sir, in the aftermath of that storm, when was the first time you were approached by anybody connected within this investigation on either side, if you recall?
About 2 weeks.
Who was it that approached you at that time?
First name is Paul, and he described himself as a private investigator for the defense team.
Prior to hearing from the defense private investigator, had you ever heard from anybody from any police department whatsoever?
No,
Do you know who Michael Proctor is?
I do.
Objection.
I'll allow that.
And did Michael Proctor ever call you or contact you at all in those 2 weeks?
No.
Where did the defense investigator approach you, if you recall?
He approached me at my place of work, which was at the Canton ice rink, Metropolis ice rink.
And what were you doing at the ice rink?
I was operating the Zamboni.
Now, without telling us what you told him, did you speak to the defense investigator?
Yes, I did.
And at some point, did you do something with the defense investigator?
Yes, I met him for a second time at the Kennedy School, and then we both drove my route.
Skipping ahead to the next year, sir, 2023, were you approached by law enforcement officers who were not Canton Police or Massachusetts State Police?
Yes,
Without telling us what you told them, did you speak to them?
yes,
Before speaking to them in 2023, had you ever heard from former Trooper Michael Proctor or anybody from this investigation from the State Police or Canton Police?
no,
At some point, did you hear from the State Police?
yes,
That was after you'd already talked to the defense and to these other law enforcement officers who were not State Police or Canton Police?
yes,
And sir, how clear is your memory about what you saw or didn't see in the early morning hours of January 29th of 2022 in the area of 34 Fairview? The first up and down pass, the second up and down pass, and then the third time you came.
very strong.
I have no further questions. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. The exhibit. All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Have you and I met before?
No, sir.
This is our first time speaking?
Yes, sir.
Sir, you say that your memory from that night is very strong. Would it be fair to say that before today, you've talked about this case many times?
Yes,
You've interviewed with different law enforcement people as well as civilians and attorneys, haven't you?
correct.
I have not been one of them.
No, you have not.
And is it fair to say that when you've recounted that night as far as times and what you saw, many times your memory has changed? Is that fair to say?
It has not.
You spoke to a private investigator on behalf of the defense shortly after that night.
Yes,
Was that the first time that you spoke to somebody about what you had seen or not seen?
yes,
That is the first time?
yes,
Inevitably, over time, you have given statements to at least 4 different people, correct?
correct,
And you've testified in court under oath.
correct.
During the pendency from that night until today, it's fair to say there are many times where you have been intimidated, isn't it?
No,
You've been threatened.
nope,
You were aware, sir, that you were being threatened by an online blogger to expose you.
I was not.
You're saying as you sit here today, you have no awareness in the history of this case that you were being threatened by an online blogger.
I was not threatened by an online blogger.
Was the online blogger threatening or saying that he would expose you and tell personal things about you if you weren't helpful?
He was not threatening.
Let's remove the word threatening. Was the person communicating and making clear to you that if you didn't testify in a certain way, there would be some consequence to you?
Objection. Can we have a time frame, please?
Any time from when you first spoke to the private investigator until today, were there communications made to you by an online blogger that there would be consequence for you if you didn't testify in a way that was acceptable to them?
No,
You listened, of course, didn't you, to podcasts that were about you?
I did not.
People told you about them.
Yes, they did.
When friends told you about them, you knew who that person was that was making those claims, correct?
Correct.
You were well aware of the person had a very strong and large social media presence.
I didn't know how large or what his presence were, but yes, I knew he had a blog.
Well, you know now because you follow that blogger now, don't you?
I do follow him, yes.
You pay for a subscription?
I do not.
Did you get one for free?
I did not.
And in following that blogger, you know full well the power that person has to get attention from the community to harass, correct?
Yes.
And so during the pendency of this case, not only were you aware that you were being pressured to testify a certain way, you also knew there'd be consequences if you didn't. Isn't that true?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
The premise of that question is not accurate.
So he can answer that.
You knew there was pressure for you to testify a certain way in this case, didn't you?
I did not know I was being required to testify a certain way. I was also at the time dealing with the loss of my wife. I was not paying any attention to any social media.
Sorry for your loss, but you are aware during the pendency of this case that there has been pressure on you to testify in a certain way. Isn't that fair to say?
No,
Sir, you received a call from that blogger, didn't you?
I did.
And during that call, did you know the person was recording you?
I did not.
You later learned that the person recorded you.
I did not.
Do you know that your conversations were spread throughout the community online?
I was.
Sir, some of those communications or inquiries were claims that you would be exposed for personal matters if you didn't testify a certain way, weren't they?
No.
Inevitably, you've met this person, haven't you?
I've seen him. I haven't met him.
Have you ever spent time with him?
No, I have not.
You're still a follower of that blog.
I am.
When you follow the blog, do you read anything or do you watch it?
No, I don't do much anything towards the blogger.
As you follow it, you can see there are oftentimes articles about you.
No,
Haven't you ever been encouraged to do the right thing?
no,
Haven't you ever been celebrated after you've testified in a way favorable for one side
Yes.
or the other?
yes,
And so when you were being celebrated, that certainly took off any pressure that could be consequence, didn't it?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
When you were celebrated for testifying a certain way, did you find that to be encouraging?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
I did find it to be encouraging,
Did
but
you,
I did not want it. I don't think I deserved it. All I was doing was my job and telling the truth.
did you enjoy the attention that you got?
I did not.
Did you pose in photographs with people who support one side or the other?
I did.
And when you were in those photographs, are you saying that you didn't enjoy the attention that you were receiving?
I did not. Again, I was trying to be polite and trying to avoid any confrontation that may come from something if I said no.
Well, did anybody from the district attorney's office ever suggest they would confront you or punish you if you didn't testify a certain way?
No.
How many friends contacted you about what was being said before you testified, the pressure? How many people told you about that?
I couldn't tell you. All my friends were telling me.
So you were hearing a lot of noise or information from your friend group and community about what was being said about you.
Yes.
And this was before you testified at the first trial, sir.
This was before.
Sir, you work hard, don't you?
I do.
You work many different jobs.
I do.
You try to be a good citizen.
I do.
You are not looking for attention.
I am not.
It was brought to you.
It was brought to me.
You wish you never had that attention, don't you?
Yes.
Because you just want to live your life the way you want to live it rather than have people you don't know attacking, criticizing, or intimidating you.
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Could you repeat that, please?
So would it be fair to say that you simply want to live your life the way you've been living it without outside people attacking or pressuring or threatening you?
Yes.
On June 15, June 5th, 2023, you were contacted by the defense private investigator, weren't you? And you may not know the dates. Were you contacted twice by the private investigator?
I would need to know what time frame we're looking at.
Fair enough. By the way, the blogger that I speak of, do you know if he is friendly or supports one side over the other?
I know he is friendly towards one side, yes.
Okay. The side sitting in the back of the room?
I would say the defense team.
You've interacted with a private investigator hired by the defense.
Yes.
Have you also interacted with any of the attorneys?
Yes.
Which attorneys have you interacted with?
Mr. Yannetti.
Have you contacted or have you spoken to any other attorneys other than Mr. Yannetti?
Just Mr. Yannetti.
How many times have you spoken to Mr. Yannetti?
Again, what are we talking? First trial, this trial?
The entire time, from that night until today. Can you remember how many times that you've
About
spoken?
5 times.
How many times have you gone in to be interviewed by him?
4 times?
During those interviews, were they spaced out over the course of this case?
Yes.
What was the purpose of those interviews?
To go over my testimony.
When you went over testimony, were you ever shown prior testimony?
Yes.
Were you shown prior reports?
No.
Were you shown a prior investigator's report?
Yes.
Were you shown a prior report by a law enforcement agency that is not the state police and not Canton?
Not by Mr. Yannetti. I saw that first document for the first time during the first trial.
When you were discussing your testimony, was there a discussion about the fact that the times that you gave the private investigator were different than the report from that law enforcement agency?
Could you repeat that question, please?
When you were preparing the trial in those meetings, was it brought up, did you discuss that there was a difference in your memory, or at least in the reports, between what you told the defense private investigator and what you told that other law enforcement agency?
No.
Were you aware that there was a difference between the different statements attributed in your memory at the time?
The first trial, yes.
When you were with the defense preparing for trial, did you go over your testimony?
Yes.
Did you go over questions and answers?
Yes.
Were you ever subjected to a make-pretend cross-examination about issues that were important in this case?
No.
Were you ever pointed to any particular issues that were important to talk about in this case?
No.
When you did the questions and answers, were they written down or just a conversation?
Can you repeat that one, please? I'm sorry.
When you went through the questions and answers in preparing, practicing for your testimony, were they written down?
So ask it to,
When you were preparing for your testimony, were the questions and answers written down, or was it just speaking?
Just speaking.
Those 4 times that you met, is that a guess, or was it 4 times?
It was about 4 times, yes.
Could it have been more?
No.
And during those 4 times, was there anything different other than going through questions and answers about testimony and preparation? Was there any other subjects you talked about?
There were none.
Did you ever receive any compensation, sir?
I received none.
Do you know whether people were sending you compensation that you didn't receive?
No.
You don't know?
I never received anything.
Were you given anything to bring home with you so that you could remember past testimony or some of the questions and answers that were going to be asked?
No.
How long were your meetings in preparation for your testimony?
About 45 minutes to an hour.
Were they all about the same time, or were they different? When you came into court last year, it's fair to say this is after you became aware of essentially being targeted, correct?
You can answer that if you can. Can you answer that, Mr. Loughlin?
I can. I don't ever felt like I was being targeted.
This was after you received all the information from your friends and people in the community that you were being attacked.
I'll allow that.
Again, I don't feel like I was being targeted.
Are you concerned after this case what happens with the blogger that you follow?
No.
You talked about your meeting with the private investigator. The first time you met him, do you remember that meeting?
Yes.
Do you remember where you met him?
I met him at my place of employment.
Did you go anywhere with him that day?
No, I did not.
You had a conversation with him and you spoke about what you had remembered from that night?
Yes.
Do you remember when you spoke to that private investigator, you weren't sure how many times you went up and down Fairview that night? That you had said 2 or 3?
No, I told him I went up at 2:30 at 2. I told him at 3:30 I went up 2. Went up and down. And I told him about 3 hours later I went up and down. Excuse me, I went down and wasn't able to go around the police cruisers and had to turn around at Carriage Lane.
You mentioned that you believe you told the private investigator that you went up and down at 2:30. Do you remember when you spoke to the private investigator, you actually said 3 o'clock?
I don't remember the 3 o'clock.
May I approach?
Yes.
And before I do you remember you said that when you went on your second pass, it was around 3:15?
I told him I went up Fairview between about 2:40 to 2:45, and I said about 45 minutes later I went for the second time.
Okay. Now you had said 2:30, and you just now said 2:40 to 2:45, and then you said 45 minutes later.
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember telling the private investigator that when you think, or you said you saw a Ford Edge, you were actually still on Cedar Brook, not on Fairview passing by it, but you saw it from the street at Cedar Brook? Do you remember telling him that?
I
Sorry,
don't
Cedar
remember.
Crest.
Secret. I don't remember ever saying that.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes. I'll show you a copy. This is a report that you didn't write, so I don't want you to read it. I want to show it to you and see if it helps remind you of what you told the private investigator that day. You can look at any part of this, but what I'm asking you is whether or not you remember telling the private investigator that when you saw the car, you weren't passing on Fairview, you were up on Cedar Crest. That's the question I'm asking. So I'd ask you to look at whatever part you want, but I'm going to point out the part to you. When you're done, don't answer, just look up, and then I'll get to ask you some questions about your memory, okay?
Okay.
And so I've directed to this part, but you can look at any part that you want, sir. Are you done, sir?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, do you now remember when you were speaking to the defense investigator about seeing a car? You said that about 3:30 to 4 a.m., when you were plowing Cedar Crest Road, you looked toward Fairview Road and saw a small SUV parked in front of the house. Remember telling the PI that?
I never remember telling him that.
When you spoke to law enforcement, not the Canton police or the state police, you understood it was important to be as accurate as possible?
Yes.
And you understood, at least with that law enforcement agency, if you misled them in any way, it could be up to a 10-year penalty?
Yes.
When you spoke to them, did you take that interview very seriously?
Yes.
Try to be as precise and accurate as you could?
Yes.
And when you spoke to them, obviously, like anybody, you had in mind that there could be serious consequences if they felt misled.
Yes.
You try to be honest with them,
Yes.
provide them your best memory and good faith.
Yes.
And this was shortly before, well, actually, this was May 24th, 2023, correct?
Correct.
When you met, there was more than one person there from this agency?
I believe so.
Was there potentially two?
There was two.
And when you met with them, they asked you about when you began working that night.
Yes.
You told them 11:30 to midnight.
I never told him that.
And so as you sit here today, your memory is you did not tell those law enforcement agents that you began work at 11:30 to 12?
We had a 2:30 start time.
I understand, but I'm asking you,
I never told him. It was always 2:30 start time.
when you spoke to them, do you remember telling them the first time you were out near the area was midnight?
Nope. No.
When you spoke to those law enforcement personnel, were they taking notes?
I believe so.
Have you ever seen their report?
The first trial I did, yes.
Who showed you that report?
It was shown to me by Prosecutor Lally.
You think Prosecutor Lally showed you that report?
It was shown to me.
And do you remember telling those two law enforcement personnel that you believe that there were emergency vehicles, ambulances, or police cars in front of Fairview at 3 to 3:30 a.m.?
I do not.
Are you saying that you did not say these things to them, or are you saying that that's not your memory?
That's not what I said.
And so you're saying that's wrong. You're denying
Correct.
you made those statements.
Correct.
At the time they say that you told them there was emergency vehicles there at 3 a.m., that is the same time that you told the PI that you saw the Ford Edge, around 3:30 to 4, correct?
About 3:30 is when I saw the Ford Edge.
It was dark out that night, wasn't it?
Correct.
There are no street lights down near that flagpole area of 34 Fairview, is there?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Was it on that night?
I can't tell you honestly if it was.
You testified at trial? I'm sorry, at a proceeding last year?
I testified that there were. It was asked to me that there were not any streetlights, and I answered it in the affirmative way. And living in that neighborhood, I saw that there were actual streetlights.
You testified at a proceeding last year, didn't you?
Yes,
I mean, you testified at the proceeding. Did you meet anybody from the defense close in time to that proceeding?
I don't know, when we met, or how close to the proceedings it was.
Do you remember being prepared before you went into trial last time?
Yes,
by,
by Yannetti, excuse me.
do you remember telling the defense private investigator that you made your final pass at 6:30 a.m.?
I remember I told him it was about 3 hours going down Cedar Crest and was not able to go to the end of Fairview due to the first responders.
At trial last year, do you remember saying it was 5:30?
I did,
And today you had said about 6:15.
yes.
You weren't timing anything on a watch for times, were you?
I was not.
You were not accounting in any way for time whatsoever when you were out that night, were you?
No, I was not.
When you're providing times, are you trying to use your best memory?
Yes,
Do you recognize that you have a differing memory on times of what you did that night?
no.
You talked about your view from the tow truck and that you have a bunch of lights on it. On the tow truck, you had mentioned that your vision to the side was 5 to 6 feet.
Can you rephrase that, please?
Yes, of course. You said when you were driving your tow truck, you could see forward and sideways.
Okay. I don't want to be, I don't drive a tow truck.
My apologies. My apologies. Your snow plow.
Thank
You
you.
said you can see forward and sideways.
I can see forward, I can see diagonal, and I can see right to left.
When you look right to left, you said you could see about 5 feet.
Correct.
Do the lighting conditions affect how well you can see?
No.
Does the weather?
Yes.
When you're plowing, are you ever looking at the street in front of you?
Yes.
Are you looking at people's front yards?
Yes.
And so, what did you see as far as the front door of the Albert House that night? Was it open or closed?
It was closed.
Were lights on?
I can't answer that for sure. I don't remember if there were lights on.
How about the neighbors on the left? Were you looking at their front lawn?
Yes.
Did you see if their lights were on?
Again, I didn't recognize if their lights were on.
Do you look at every neighbor's front lawn up to the door as you're driving in the snow plowing?
I look to the right and to the left, and my eyes will graze to the yard. Yes, I will look there.
You were saying you have a specific memory of looking at the Albert front yard all the way to the door. Do you have a specific memory of looking at the other neighbors' yards to their door?
Can you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
Yes, you said that you looked at the Albert house all the way to the door.
Correct.
Do you have a memory of looking at any other houses all the way to the door?
Yes.
Okay. Which house had a dumpster in front of it?
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to a dumpster. Dumpster wouldn't be in the front yard.
Are you sure on your route there was no dumpsters in anybody's front yard?
I can tell you there was a dumpster this week.
No. I'm more interested in January 29, 2020.
I can't answer to that. I don't remember.
A dumpster, a 15 by 20 foot dumpster, that would be bigger than a man's body, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be.
And so you have no really specific memory of the other homes in the neighborhood that night?
I mean, I looked. I saw. I didn't see a dumpster. That would have definitely stuck out.
Okay. You said you had vision as far as your eyes could see.
Correct.
What does that mean?
Means if there were, my eyes were, as long as they're open, I can see as far as they will let me see.
Is that dependent on lighting conditions, darkness, snow?
Correct.
That night, did you have any difficulty paying attention or driving?
I did not.
Did you have a small accident that night?
I did.
Okay, what did you hit?
I hit a portable basketball net.
Was that part because of the weather conditions? You didn't have a good opportunity to see it?
No. I definitely saw it and just did not judge enough.
You said that you went up and down the road a couple of times. When you were asked to describe the car that you said you saw, when you first spoke to the defendant's private investigator, you didn't give any detail about the type of car, did you?
I told her it was a Ford Edge.
Okay. When you first spoke to the investigator, you used the words Ford Edge?
I did.
Did they bring you to a parking lot at some point?
They did.
And when they brought you to a parking lot, did they have you go out in the parking lot and look at a Ford Edge?
They did.
And when they had you go out and look at the Ford Edge, did they have you identify that as the type of car?
Yes, they did.
And when you did that, how many cars were in the parking lot?
We had a hockey game, so there were several, at least 100, 150.
Who pointed you to the Ford Edge?
I pointed to it.
Did the investigator take you to the Ford Edge?
No, he did not.
It was just an open parking lot and he asked you to look around to see if there happened to be a similar car?
No, I told him a Ford Edge. He wanted to make sure I knew what a Ford Edge looked like. I pointed to the Ford Edge, and he was satisfied.
So after you said a Ford Edge, he brought you to a parking lot to point out a car?
We were at my place of business. We just walked out the door.
Where was that?
At the Metropolis ice rink.
The rink?
Ice rink, yes.
Did you then meet the investigator later on at a school?
Yes, I did.
And who did you meet at the school?
I met Paul again.
And what was the purpose of that?
He wanted to go through my route.
You want to go through your route?
Correct.
And then, did you choose to meet at the school?
I did.
You did?
I did.
And why did you choose the school?
It was an easier landmark for the gentleman to get to, and it was minutes from my route.
Did you know that former Trooper Proctor's sister worked there?
I had no idea.
You said last year that when you went by Fairview, did you say that you would buy your final pass at 5:30 a.m.?
No.
Okay. Can I approach?
Yes.
Sir, when you have contact, you also wear reading glasses?
Yes. I can't read things up close.
Understood. This is trial testimony, testimony from June 21st, 2024.
Mhm.
And you were asked do you recall what time it was that you wound up back on Fairview? You said, I don't honestly recall what specific time. Yes?
Yes.
And then you were asked, sure. Approximately, if it was 3:15 to 3:30, that second time, what would be your best estimate of the time when you came back? And what did you say?
Say about 5:30.
And so even last year, you were having some difficulty remembering the times, right?
System.
Were you having difficulty last year remembering the times that you were on Fairview?
No.
When you said you were on Fairview last year at 5:30, you didn't see anything on the Albert front lawn at 5:30 a.m.?
I wasn't on Fairview at 5:30 a.m.
Okay. Were you asked last year about your travels on Fairview?
Yes.
Okay. When you asked about, do you recall, was time you wound up on Fairview, and you said you didn't remember. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
And is that true testimony?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you had some difficulties in your memory of when you were on Fairview when you testified last year. Isn't that fair to say?
No, it's not fair.
And then you were asked approximately if it was 3:15 to 3:30 the second time, what time did you come back?
And And I said, if I were to guess, I said 45 minutes later.
Did you say, I would say, if I had to say, it would have been 5:30 up Fairview?
That time was incorrect. It was 6:15. I couldn't go down any further due to the police presence.
So your testimony last year, you understandably made a mistake about the time, correct?
I did.
And it's true, isn't it, that you really have somewhat foggy memory about the times?
It is not.
That time of 5:30 is very different than the time you told the agents when you met them, I'm sorry, the law enforcement officials that weren't from Canton or the state police. That was very different than when you told them 3 to 3:30.
Very different.
And it's different than the 3:30 to 4 timeline that you gave the defense private investigator the first time you spoke to them. Correct?
Correct.
And it's different than what you told the jury today, that it was 6:15.
It's different, but it's not.
When you plowed that night, did you have any reason to look for somebody who was lying on the side of a yard?
No.
Did you have any expectation somebody would be lying helpless on the side of a yard that night?
No.
If you had seen somebody, certainly you would have helped.
Correct.
When you said that, well, when the private investigator asked you where you were when you said you saw the Ford Edge, are you saying that you didn't tell the private investigator that you were on Cedar?
I don't remember telling him I was on Cedar Crest. I do remember telling him that I had turned onto Fairview and saw the vehicle.
Cedar Crest in a storm at night is quite a distance from the flagpole at Fairview, isn't it?
No.
About 300 feet?
Roughly.
Difficult to see under those conditions?
No.
Could we have Exhibit 71, Stream 0, at about 6:17 a.m., please?
Okay.
Could you stop it there? Do you see that street light?
I do?
Okay. At the end of that road, past the street light, is Cedar Crest, correct?
Correct.
Is that a fair depiction of the elements that night around that time?
Yes.
And in this case, there's further illumination with the car that's facing us?
Correct.
That wasn't there, was it?
Correct.
You said after you saw law enforcement, did you come down Fairview after you saw law enforcement?
I was on Fairview already when I saw the law enforcement.
Did you drive by Cedar Crest again to go back and forth and watch what was going on, or did you go on your route?
I went on my route, which included Cedar Crest.
Did you keep driving by because you wanted to watch, or did you just leave and do your regular route?
I went and did my regular route.
Could I have 6:19:27, please? And could you play it? If you could back up a little before 6:19:27. Is that weather consistent with what it looked like to you?
Yes.
Is that you there?
I don't know if that's me. Yes, that's me. That is me.
Could we go to 6:32:45, please? Is that you again?
That one, I can't tell if that was me again.
Could we go to 6:35:14, please? Was that you?
I don't see it. I don't see the truck. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Could we go back to 6:35:12?
That looks like to be a pickup truck. That does
Okay.
not look like my truck.
6:37:45, please? And that's you again, right?
Again, I can't tell you for sure if that was me.
Those were not your red and orange lights consistent with the earlier ones that went by?
What I saw the first time was the reflecting tape off the body of my truck.
Could we go to
I have
7?
a plow guy that is a contractor that we work tandem together.
And was he out there that night as well, going by Fairview?
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever tell the private investigator about him?
Yes, I did.
7:00, 22 seconds, please. Is that you, sir?
I can't say for sure.
7:15, 45 seconds, please. Do you recognize that plow?
Again, I do not.
7:19 and 55 seconds, please. Was that you, sir?
That was me.
How long does your route take?
It's hard to say. I mean, as long as it's snowing, it can take as long as it takes.
Well, if you're going to do a pass, how long does an entire pass take?
If I were to do from Cedar Crest to the end, it would take probably 10 minutes. If I were to do the entire route, I'm not cleaning up, I'm just giving it a pass so people can get through. Could take about 3 hours, could take 4 hours.
When you mentioned Brian Albert on your direct examination, Had you talked to the defense about Brian Albert in your preparation for testimony?
No.
You knew some of the Albert family,
I know the entire Albert family.
and you know Brian Albert as a police officer?
Yes, I do.
Why is it that 3 times in your direct testimony you characterized him as a first responder?
Because he's a police officer, the first responders.
Did anybody ever suggest to you to use the terms or the phrases first responder when you were describing Brian Albert?
No one did. Those are my words.
Since your trial testimony last year, have you received any more focusing or targeting of harassment?
Ask it differently, Mr. Brown.
Since last year when you testified, have you received any recent aggression towards you for testifying?
No.
Have you had any further focus or problems?
No.
I'll strike that.
I have no further questions.
Very briefly, sir. You were asked by Mr. Brennan about whether you saw a dumpster that night. Do you recall that line of questioning?
I do.
In the aftermath of January 29th of 2022, was a dumpster all over the news for the next 3.5 years?
Not that I'm aware of.
You were asked about going through your route with the defense investigator and giving a statement to the defense investigator.
Yes.
How soon after January 29th of 2022 was that?
2 weeks.
Were the events fresh in your mind at that time?
Yes.
Finally, oh, actually not finally, I've got 2 more points, but they're both brief. You had mentioned that that night you actually misjudged and hit a net.
Yes.
Can you describe the basketball apparatus that, and I'm going to ask you what part of it you hit, but describe what that looks like.
It's got a base with wheels on it. It's portable, so you can move it in and out. And it's got the basketball frame, and it's got the backboard and then rim.
Okay. So this is not a pole that was cemented into the ground.
Correct.
But perhaps we're all familiar with it, the black base that maybe you put sandbags on,
Correct.
that type of thing to keep it in place, but it does have wheels?
Correct.
All right, and you mentioned the net. The net is the rope netting that comes down, correct?
Correct.
There's also a hoop that keeps the net in place?
Yes.
And the pole?
Correct.
And the base?
Correct.
Of all those things, what part did your Franken truck actually catch?
It caught the net in the little bit part of the frame, of the frame where the net was.
Something that you saw from the beginning, you just misjudged the distance.
Correct.
Now, finally, with regard to the 5:30 testimony that you gave last year,
Yes.
did you also testify that the last pass that you tried to make when the police were blocking the scene was about 3 hours after that 3:30 second up and down?
Yes.
So why is it last year that you testified that it was 3 hours later, but you came up with the time of 5:30 as the final time?
As he's asking me these questions, I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm sorry, math is not my strong suit.
What time was it when you made that final pass, sir?
6:15, 6:15, 6:30.
I have nothing further.
You mentioned you're trying to do the math in your head. There is no reason why you would specifically remember certain times on each pass other than trying to remember and give an accounting, right?
Could you rephrase that, please?
Sure. You don't have your watch out on a certain schedule that you have to pass a certain street at a certain time.
Correct.
You weren't marking your times to some event when you were driving up and down the street that night, were you?
No,
So you're trying to go back with your memory and piece it together the best you can.
correct.
And that's why you're giving estimates, yes? And
Correct.
when you spoke to those law enforcement officials, not Canton, not state police, and you said at 3 o'clock you saw first responder vehicles, that was based on your memory, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was based on your memory.
Not at 3:30.
Right. Do you know that there was a car similar to a Ford Edge in front of 34 Fairview around 6 a.m. that morning?
I wasn't able to get in front of Fairview Drive, 34 Fairview, at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Have you ever met Kerry Roberts before?
I have not.
Counsel just asked you if there was a lot of media about this case, and you said that there was.
I,
Did he just ask you a question about whether there was a lot of attention on this case?
Objection.
Did he just talk to you about everything that happened after this case, all the attention on this case?
Objection.
Remember his question about all the attention after this case?
he asked specifically a question about the dumpsters.
And he said that wasn't subject to a lot of attention, was it?
Correct.
Right. But this case was.
The case itself, yes.
The people involved in this case were subject to a lot of attention.
Correct.
And you spoke to the defense investigator after this case, as far as attention is concerned. You remember speaking to the investigator on June 5th, 2023?
Yes.
And do you know, coincidentally, that is the day that the blogger put out the articles on you, accusing you of not doing the right thing?
Objection.
May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you a document. Let's take a look at that document. What day is that document dated?
June 5th, 2023.
Without reading it, that document talks about you.
Correct.
And your friends and people in the community talked to you about this article, didn't they?
Not specifically this article, but they were sending me stuff that were being printed about me, yes.
Why don't you take a little look at what's said and you can tell us whether that's the same type of information that was being conveyed to you through intermediaries.
Can you ask that question again, please?
Yes, sir. Was this some of the kind of attention that you were receiving on June 5th after you spoke to the defense investigator?
Yes.
Like from Sidebar?
Okay.
All rise for the court, please. Jurors, close your doors and follow me. Put back in session, you may be seated.
All right, Mr. Brennan.
So I have just a few more questions. When I had mentioned about meeting the defense investigator on June 5th, 2023, I misspoke. It was June 5th, 2024. Does that sound more like it?
Yes.
June 5th, 2024, was that before, shortly before you testified before?
Yes.
You were asked on redirect examination whether any dumpsters got any attention about this case. The question I was asking is, did you notice things that might have been open and obvious? And you have no memory of an actual dumpster in the area, correct?
Correct.
If I could have on the screen Exhibit 37, still photo from that clip. May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Sure.
It's a video that I'll stop at a certain point.
Okay.
Exhibit 71. And sir, do you notice the big red dumpster to the right side across from Fairview?
Yes.
Okay, you can take that down. Sir, when we started the break, I'd asked you some questions. I showed you a document, asked you if you were aware what was inside that document, and you mentioned that was around June 5th, 2023. That was before your last testimony in this case?
Yes.
And you knew that a person or persons were putting out private pictures of you online?
I did notice.
And those private pictures, you didn't give anybody permission or want that attention, did you?
I did not.
In fact, it wasn't just some private pictures, it was pictures taken from a number of different times in your life, correct?
Yes.
You never gave anybody permission to do that?
I did not.
You didn't want people talking about you or asking you questions? That was none of their business, did you?
I did not.
And it was embarrassing that you were being made this public spectacle when you had done nothing wrong, correct?
Ask it differently.
Was it embarrassing what they were doing to you?
I wouldn't say embarrassing as more as aggravating.
In fact, they were calling your boss. Yes?
I'm going to allow that.
Yes.
And you mentioned how hard you work.
Yes.
Plow, you even deliver peaches for 8 years.
Yes.
Zamboni, anytime you can work, you try hard, don't you?
I do.
And when someone's calling your boss, giving undue attention to you, didn't it create some concern it could affect your livelihood?
I did not think it was going to affect me in that manner.
In addition to dragging you into this, because of you, your brother was dragged into this, wasn't he?
Ask it differently.
When you were getting this information about what was happening, you learned that they were also dragging your brother into this because of you, correct?
I'll sustain that.
Did you learn that information was coming out about your brother?
I knew my brother was dealing with other issues regarding this case.
And certainly, you're close with your brother.
Yes.
You care for your brother.
Yes.
You did not want to upset anybody and have more attention brought onto your brother, did you?
I did not.
And there was an attempt to link your brother to one of the Alberts, in fact, correct?
Yes.
as well as you.
I don't know if I was being linked.
Did you know the information of trying to so-called out you about the fact that you worked for Chris Albert?
I'm gonna sustain that the words first.
Were you aware when your friends and family were telling you about what was going on, about an attempt to draw a relationship between you and the Alberts?
No.
And were you aware when people were telling you what was happening, that there was attacks on you personally, like finances and things like that?
Yes, I was aware of that.
And certainly, that is pretty discouraging when that is happening, when you've done nothing wrong, isn't it?
It was, again, aggravating.
And this was all happening before you came in and testified last time at trial.
Correct.
After you testified, things got better?
I wouldn't say better. It's gotten a little more easily manageable.
You were no longer being harassed, you were being embraced.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Showing you a photograph, do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that part of the embracing process after you testified a certain way at the last trial?
It was after I testified, yes.
With redactions, I'm going to introduce a select portion of this.
So I need to see what that is. Come to Sidebar and make this very brief, please. So that's next in evidence, Madam Clerk. Madam Court Reporter, please.
212.
And I just showed you a photograph. Was that a fair and accurate depiction of you after your last testimony,
Yes.
reflecting you now being embraced rather than attacked?
Yes.
Could we show the photo, please, Ms. Gilman, with the court's permission?
Yes.
And that's you, Mr. Laughlin?
Yes.
You can take that down, please. Thank you for your time.
Just very briefly, sir, if I might, Your Honor.
Sure.
Mr. Laughlin, I should say. The questioning about the attention that you received in 2023 when you received secondhand the information from the blogger, was that before or long after you were interviewed and gave a statement to the defense investigator in February of 2022?
It was long after.
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lockman, you are all set, sir. Okay. There another witness, Mr. Chairman?
The defense calls Karina Kolakifis.
All right, do you need to see me before, as she's coming in, or will that be in a while?
I can't remember.
Why don't you come on up really quickly? application only.
Follow me. Then you guys step up. Face the clerk and raise your right hand, please.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case now and here is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell both your first name and your last name?
Sure. My name's Karina Kolakithis. It's Karina. Last name Kolakithis. Kolokithas.
That's almost as bad as your name.
It's long.
In what town do you live, ma'am?
I live in Canton.
How long have you lived there?
We've lived there for 22 years.
Where did you grow up?
So I initially grew up in Randolph, and then we moved to Braintree, and I finished my last 3 years of high school and stayed there till I was married.
And where did you go to school after high school?
So after high school, I went to Northeastern University. I did the pharmacy program there.
And what is your profession?
I'm a pharmacist.
How long have you worked as a pharmacist?
So total years is about 30 years as a pharmacist, but I have been at my current job for about 24 years.
Are you married?
I am married.
To whom?
His name is Nicholas Kolakithis.
How long have you been married for?
24 years.
Do you have children?
I have 2 children.
And without giving us their names, can you tell us if you have boys or girls and what their ages are?
So I have 2 girls. One is 19 and one is 17.
Have you raised your children in Canton?
Yes, I have.
Do your children play sports, or have they played sports in Canton?
I have both girls played sports in Canton. One actively is playing sports there, and one is in college, so she's not playing sports.
Understood. What sports have your girls played?
So they primarily played basketball, and my youngest plays lacrosse as well.
From raising your children in Canton and attending their sporting events, I'm assuming, have you met other parents with children on your daughter's teams?
Yes, I have.
Specifically, did you come to know Jennifer and Matthew McCabe?
Yes, I have.
And is that the way that you came to know them?
Correct. Typically, that's how we came to become friends with people, through the sports.
Now, prior to January 28th of 2022, how long had you known Jennifer McCabe specifically?
I would say about 10 years or so.
And during that time, what was the nature of your relationship with Jennifer McCabe?
So we were just friends through the kids. Multiple kids did different sports. They played on different sports teams, so we were friends through that.
And how often, or if at all, did you socialize with her and or her husband?
So typically, sometimes if the kids had play dates, it was mostly my youngest daughter, to be honest. So my youngest daughter and one of her daughters were good friends and played on similar sporting teams. So they would have play dates and stuff like that. So sometimes we'd see them after a game, or if they had a play date or something like that.
And I'm sorry, it's a little loud with the fan. If the last part of your answer, if I didn't hear it, I'm thinking the jurors might not have heard that. You said it was mostly after games?
After sporting, after play dates or, sports and stuff like that.
I see. And would there be times where, after a game you go out for pizza, that type of thing?
Yeah, you'd go out for pizza, or the girls would be like, "Hey, Mom, can we have a play date? Can a couple of the girls, come over the house and,
Okay.
do stuff
Now,
like that?"
Prior to January 28th of 2022, did you know John O'Keefe?
So I knew John O'Keefe same way. His niece and my younger daughter were good friends, are good friends. So same thing. We knew him through the sports as well. My husband coached his niece in a couple teams, and they also played soccer together. So that's how we knew John.
And do you remember how long you would have known him for before January 28th of 2022?
I would say about 9 years or so.
And what was the nature of that relationship?
Friendly. Didn't like go out with him, but we were friends. Like we saw him all the time. He would, take my younger daughter with him. We just saw him all the time. So weekly, I would say.
Sure. What about Karen Reed? Did you know Karen Reed prior to January 28th of 2022?
So same thing, met Karen through John. And I believe the first time I met her was at Jennifer McCabe's house sometime in 2020.
2020.
Correct.
So this would have been during the pandemic?
Correct.
And do you see Karen in the courtroom today?
I do.
Would you please point her out and describe what she's wearing?
She is wearing a blue suit at the table with her lawyers.
Okay. May the record reflect that the witnesses identified Ms. Reed?
Okay.
Now, prior to January 28th of 2022, how often would you have seen or interacted with Karen Reed in any capacity, if you know?
So Karen sometimes would come to watch games of John's niece. So I would see her there and we would just casually talk.
And what was the nature of your relationship with her prior to January 28th of 2022?
We were friendly.
All right. Now, directing your attention to January 28th of 2022, do you recall that being a Friday?
Correct.
What did you do that day
So that day I worked.
as a pharmacist?
Correct.
Do you recall what your hours were?
Approximately, I would say 8 to 4 or 4:30 that day.
What plans did you have after work?
So after work, my plans were to go to the Canton High basketball game to watch my daughter play.
And what plans came up for before the game that night?
So before the game, before I left work, there was a text that went around saying that some of the parents were going to meet at the Canton Junction before the game, and if anybody wanted to stop by and grab a bite to eat.
And what is the Canton Junction?
So it used to be like a little pub/restaurant in Canton.
Did you go to the Canton Junction?
So I went home first because I had a bag I had to switch out of because we have to have plastic clear bags at work. So anyway, so I went home and then after that I stopped at the Canton Junction.
Okay. And did you go alone or with someone?
So I went by myself.
And when you got there, did you see people that you knew?
Correct. So I walked in and there was a bunch of parents there from the varsity teams, the varsity team.
And, excuse me, was either John O'Keefe or Karen Reed there?
They were not there.
What about Jennifer McCabe and or Matthew McCabe, her husband?
I believe Matthew McCabe was there. I don't believe Jennifer went to the Canton Junction.
Now, how long were you at the Canton Junction for?
I would say less than an hour.
Do you recall about what time it was that you would have been leaving there?
I'm not really sure. The game started at 6:30, so before 6:30.
All right. And when you left the Canton Junction, where did you go?
I went to Canton High School to watch the game.
And in the gymnasium, with whom did you sit to watch your daughter's basketball game?
I'm not sure who I sat with, but it would have been those parents from the varsity team, whoever was there and wherever there was a spot.
Was it generally a custom that the parents of all the kids on the team would kind of congregate together in the stands?
Correct.
Do you recall what time the basketball game ended?
I believe the game ended around 8:30.
Where did you go after the basketball game?
So after the game ended, I went down and waited on the court for my daughter to come out of the locker room, greeted her, the players, and then I said to everybody, I'm going home.
Okay. And you did go home?
Correct. I went home after the game.
And having now made it home, what were your plans that night?
So my plans were to stay home. I was tired. I worked all day, watched the game. I was pretty much done with the day. So my plans were to stay home.
At some point, did those plans wind up changing?
So then I started getting text messages from my husband saying, you should come out. We're going to go to the waterfall. And I said, no, I'm not coming.
And what is the waterfall?
So that's a restaurant that has a bar, and it's on in Canton on Washington Street.
Okay, so you've given your husband the stiff arm, so to
Correct.
speak, right? You're
Correct.
not going.
Not going.
So what happens?
So then he keeps on texting me. He's like, I'm at the waterfall. You should really come. It's fun. There's a band. And I was like, oh, really? Like, I don't want to go. And then my kids got involved with the conversation.
And how did that affect your decision?
So they started saying to me, Mom, you never go out. You never do anything. You know, Dad's by himself. Just go, keep him company while he eats. So I reluctantly went.
All right, so you were guilted into it.
Guilted 100% into it.
All right, so where did you go?
So then I went to the waterfall.
Do you recall about what time it was that you got to the Waterfall Bar and Grill?
I believe I got there approximately 9:30 or so.
And when you first arrived there, who was there, if anyone, that you recognized?
So my husband was there, and then I recognized Jennifer and Matt McCabe.
And what happened after you got there?
So after I got there, I walked in, and I said to my husband, I'm like, where is everybody from the basketball team? And he said, I don't know. They all sort of split up. He said, don't worry. Just hang out here. I already ordered a sandwich, so just hang out with me while I eat, and then we'll go.
And were you introduced to anyone?
Yeah, so then Jennifer McCabe started introducing me to all her family. So I got to meet a lot of them. It was fun. It was a good time.
And do you recall specifically who you met?
So I think I believe I met. Well, she sort of just introduced me to whoever was at the table. So I'm not sure 100%. Just like the niece, her sister, her brother-in-law, like people like that.
All right, the Albert family?
Correct.
And when you're being introduced to a bunch of people at once, it can be tough to keep everybody's names straight at the time?
Right, it's kind of overwhelming. There was a lot of Jen's family.
Now, what were you drinking that night?
So that night I drank water.
And the whole time you were at the waterfall, did you drink anything else except for water?
I only drank water that night.
Now, was there a point when you were going to leave the waterfall before they closed up for the night?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. You wound up leaving at a certain time, correct?
I never left.
Well, you left because you're in court today. You're not still at the waterfall.
Okay, correct.
So what I'm trying to get at is, at some point you left the waterfall, but was there a point before that where you were planning to go?
Correct.
All right. Tell us about that.
So my husband had eaten, and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to get going. And I was about to get going, and then John and Karen walked in.
Okay. And when you say John and Karen, you're referring to?
John O'Keefe and Karen Reed.
And why did that change your plans?
I was excited to see them. I liked Karen, so as soon as I saw her walk in, I was like, hey, I'm going to stay. I want to talk to her.
And what did you notice about John O'Keefe's mood when he arrived that night?
So John was very happy. His niece had just gotten into a private school called Bishop Fian, and that was like the first thing he was talking about. He was elated that she got in, and he was telling everybody about that.
And thereafter, how much interaction did you have with John and/or Karen?
Karen and I probably spent the entire night talking. Maybe give or take some time that we didn't, but the majority of the time, Karen and I were speaking together.
And if you had to estimate, how long a conversation did you have with Karen?
Maybe an hour, like 50 minutes out of the hour. Like if we spent like an hour together, perhaps we spoke 50 minutes of those out of that hour.
And without telling us the content of the conversation, what was the subject matter, if you remember?
So Karen was also, she mentioned being excited about Kaylee getting into Bishop Fian. And well, when I first saw her, she first started talking about my daughter. So I saw her, she came in, she greeted me, and when we did start talking, she just started talking about my daughter and how much she really loved my daughter's relationship with John's niece.
Okay. And while you were having this conversation with Karen, was it an easy conversation back and forth?
Very easy.
Where were you located within the waterfall while you were having this conversation?
We were at a I don't remember where we were. We were talking. We were sitting down talking at a table.
And how close did you get to her when you were speaking with her?
In order in order for someone to hear you, because of the band being so loud, we were probably a couple feet from each other.
And in what direction were you facing when you were speaking to her? And I'm talking in relation to Karen.
I don't remember if she was next to me at this point. She could have been next to me at this point.
All right. And your face would have been facing where?
At her.
Okay. That actually was the question. I'm sorry. This is kind of a stilted way to talk, but I have to ask the questions this way.
We were face to face.
There you go. All right. So in other words, Karen was also facing you when she was speaking to you?
Correct.
Did you notice what Karen was drinking?
So she was drinking a drink out of, it was a clear liquid out of a clear glass, and I assumed it to be alcohol of some sort, but I'm not sure.
And while you were talking with her, can you describe, was the conversation coherent?
Very coherent.
Was she making sense?
She was.
Was she engaged in the conversation?
She was.
And did you make any observations regarding her sobriety?
She seemed fine to me.
And you're a pharmacist, correct?
I am a
And
pharmacist.
you were that night.
I was that night.
How much interaction did you see that Karen had with John O'Keefe?
They had some interaction.
And was there one specific interaction that stands out in your mind, then and today? And I'm talking about a physical interaction.
When they hugged at one point.
Okay. And did John come over to Karen at one point and do something?
He did.
What did he do?
So John went over to Karen and he gave her a kiss on the forehead.
Okay. And that kiss on the forehead, why did that stand out to you?
So honestly, I'd never seen something like that before, a boyfriend do to a girlfriend in public. Never saw that. So it just stood out to me. I was like, wow, that's the sweetest thing I've ever seen.
Can we cue up Exhibit 22, Mr. Wolk? I'd like to go to approximately 11:36 and 41 seconds. And if we can, well, first of all, have you seen that video before, ma'am?
I have.
Do you recognize what Exhibit 22 depicts?
It shows the waterfall.
And is that consistent with what it looked like when you were there that night?
Correct.
And you've previously identified that as being a fair and accurate video of that night?
I do.
If we could zoom in, well, first of all, again, let me try and lay a foundation. Where would you be, if you recall, at the waterfall within that video? To the right, to the left?
I'm in the right, in the black top, sitting on a chair.
Okay, could we zoom in on that area, Mr. Wolf? Okay, we've zoomed in. Do you see yourself?
I do.
And where are you seated?
So there's a white jacket on the back of a chair. That's me.
And do you see anybody else in that video that you now recognize?
I see Brian Higgins.
Okay. And when you say Brian Higgins, is that somebody that you had known prior to that night?
I did not know Brian.
He was one of the people you were introduced to?
Correct.
And you since have learned, put the face to the body, or I'm sorry, I should say the name to the body or the name to the face?
Correct.
All right. And where do you see Brian Higgins?
He has like an emblem on the back of like a sweatshirt.
All right, so his back is to the camera,
Correct.
and we have not located that pointer, have we? Thank you, sir. May I approach the...
Yes.
Don't you?
Now, if you can, ma'am, would you please use that pointer to show where you are first?
That's me.
Okay. And Brian Higgins?
That's him.
All right. Do you recognize, at this point in the video, do you recognize anybody else?
Not right now.
Okay. If we could start to play it, Mr. Wolf? And stop for a second. I would ask you, as soon as you recognize somebody else, if you'd speak up and tell us to stop, and we'll pause.
Okay. So right there is Karen's head.
Okay. Is that the back of Karen's head, or?
Correct. So that's the back of her head.
All right.
And then
you're, by the way, just so the record's clear, over Mr. Higgins' shoulder, there appears to be a face looking forward on the right shoulder. You see that, right?
correct.
You're not referring to that. You're referring to the long hair that's in back of that face.
Yeah. Could I point to it
Sure.
again? Okay. So I'm referring to that head right there.
Understood. Okay. And,
And then-
I think you had said something else?
And then that right there is John O'Keefe with the hat.
Okay. There's a ball cap.
Correct.
And on the video, as we're looking at it, it's to the right up the top. It's to the right of the PM chyron there.
Right
up the
to the
top
right
of
of-
the screen.
Correct. Sorry.
If we could continue to play. Stop. What do you see?
So I see John giving Karen a kiss on the forehead.
Is that what you saw that night?
I did. I was looking right at them when it happened.
You were facing them.
I was facing them.
And what about Mr. Higgins? Where was he facing?
It appears that he's facing them as well.
That happened right in front of him.
That's what it looks like.
If we could play further. Okay, you can stop and we can take that down. Now, that night, did you have any information about the nature of Karen Reed's previous interactions with Brian Higgins?
None whatsoever.
Okay. How long did you stay at the waterfall, or if you recall about what time you got ready to leave?
I believe things wrapped up around midnight.
And with whom were you leaving around midnight?
So my husband and Matt McCabe stayed behind. They were helping the band clean up and stuff. So it was myself, Jennifer McCabe, and Karen Reed that walked out together.
Okay. And you have, you've previously seen video footage of the end of the night with yourself, Karen, and Jennifer McCabe sort of in a grouping.
Correct.
And excuse me, I'm sorry that I just need to clear my throat. I hope that's the
okay.
last time.
That's okay.
Did you see on that same video at the same time, there's a grouping in another area of the bar at the same time?
Correct.
And do you recall who was in that grouping?
I believe it was Chris Albert, Brian Albert, and Brian Higgins.
Okay. Could we now publish again Exhibit 22? And I'd like from the approximate start time of 11:57 and 42 seconds. And if we could hit play, Mr. Wolf? Oh, I'll tell you what, stop it for a sec. Thank you. Could you zoom in, please, on the right portion of that video, the upper right? We'll start with that. Okay. So this is the start of this clip. It looks to be 11:57 and 38. Do you see anybody in that clip that you recognize?
Yes, so I am the person with the jacket with the fur around the hood, and Karen Reed is the other woman that I'm talking
All
to.
right. We could play that, Mr. Wolf? And right now, do you recognize anybody else in the background of that?
So to the right in the plaid shirt is my husband, Nicholas.
Okay. What about over your left shoulder?
So over my left shoulder is John O'Keefe.
And does that appear to be his back?
Correct.
Okay. You can play. And he was in, stop for a second. He was in your line of vision at that point, correct?
Correct.
What does he appear to be doing?
He appears to be like paying a tab or something like that, or maybe getting a drink. I'm not sure.
Okay, and do you see him looking in a particular direction right now?
He looks to be looking over his left.
Continue to play. Oh, if we could pause for a second. I neglected to ask you to point out with the pointer. We
Oh,
have
I'm
it now,
sorry.
we might
Okay.
as well use it.
Okay.
If you could point to yourself first.
Okay. So that's me.
All right, Karen
That's Karen.
and John O'Keefe.
That's John.
Okay, continue to play, Mr. Wolf. Stop. Back up just a sec. Oh. Oh. I'll tell you when to start. Yep. Play. Stop. Okay. Do you see what direction John O'Keefe is facing now?
He's looking to the left.
Okay, keep going. Keep going. Stop. What direction is he facing now?
To the left.
And what is over to the left?
I believe that's where the other group of men are located, perhaps.
Okay, keep playing. And I'd like to run this to 11:58:25. Stop. At this point, his whole body is turned to the left, correct?
Correct.
And he appears to be facing where the other group of men were?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
He appears to be facing in the direction of where the other group of men were?
Correct.
Continue to play, all through until 11:58:25. Okay, that's perfect. Now, keeping the video up, I'd like to now scroll over to the left side of the screen, and we're going to start that at 11:57:42, the same approximate time we started the previous discussion. Stop. Okay. You've previously described the other three men. Are you able to identify them on this video now in this still frame clip?
I believe I am
Okay.
able.
And who do you see?
I see Chris Albert, Brian Higgins, and Brian Albert.
And which one is which?
Chris Albert is the one that grabbed Brian Higgins' arm, and Brian Albert is with his back towards us.
Okay, now I'll ask you to use the pointer and point to Chris Albert, please.
That's Chris Albert.
On the right. Where's Brian Higgins?
That's Brian Higgins.
In the middle?
Yeah, in the middle. And that's Brian Albert,
Okay.
I believe.
And with regard to Brian Higgins, which direction is he facing?
He's facing the left.
He's facing to the left?
I mean, I'm sorry, he's facing to the right.
Okay. And the direction that he's facing in, who's over there?
Sustained.
What is over there? Is that the direction of the bar?
Sustained.
Okay. Continue to play, please. Stop. Did you see he grabbed his arm a second time?
Correct.
And Brian Higgins is facing in which direction this time?
He's facing the bar area.
Continue to play, please. Okay. You noticed some motion that Brian Higgins made?
He waved his arm.
Back it up for a second, Mr. Wolk, please. Stop. Did you see a motion that,
He put his left arm up.
okay? Appeared to be summoning somebody?
Sustained.
Objection to this whole line.
Continue to play. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Continue to play. I'll bear that in mind. Okay, we can stop there. Ms. Kolakithis, did you see how many times Brian Higgins motioned with his arm?
Sustained. Cromwell versus please, Mr.
Understood, understood. Now, prior to this night, had you known or been aware of Chris Albert?
Just knew him from seeing him at D&E Pizza.
Okay, and you say you've seen him at D&E Pizza in what capacity?
I think he's the owner there at D&E Pizza, and we've gotten pizza there before.
And you'd been in that establishment before?
Correct.
And with regard to Brian Albert, have you had any interaction with him, either that night or before?
So that night, I was introduced to him, and I think I even spoke to him a little bit there, and then maybe saw him like a basketball game. I don't remember him really prior to that night.
Okay. Now, I'd like to play the portion of the video where you are then leaving and ask you some questions about that. Yes, I think we can zoom out and perhaps hit play, Mr. Wolk, at this point. And pause for a sec. If you could use the pointer and just point out again where you are at this point.
That is me.
All right. And are you able to see Karen at that point?
She's right there.
Okay. And what about Jen McCabe? Are you able to see her at that point?
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Continue to play, please. And stop for a second. I should have asked you, if you do see Jennifer McCabe enter the picture, could you alert us?
Okay.
Continue to play. When you can turn the lights back on. When you were leaving the establishment, whom did you leave with?
So again, it was myself, Jennifer McCabe, and Karen.
Did anything unusual occur when you were leaving?
So as we were leaving, Jen went over to Karen, kind of put her arm around her, and she started saying, "You're coming with me, you're coming with me." And Karen's like, "Huh? Like, what? Like, where are we going?" And
I'm going to sustain the objection.
The first part of that answer, the putting her arm around her, "You're coming with me," why did that stand out in your memory?
just because I was there too, and it just was strange. It was just like, "You're coming with me." Like, it was just something that stood out to me.
You weren't included.
I mean, no, it's fine. I mean, it was just stood out, you know? Yeah.
Did Karen go with Jen McCabe?
No, she did not.
What did you see her do?
So then, out of the clear blue, thinking that Karen was going to go with Jen, I see Karen with John.
And where did you see Karen with John?
I saw them just I was parked across Washington Street, across from the restaurant, and I just saw Karen and John like walking down towards what used to be Amber Road, a place.
It used to be Amber Road?
It used to be Amber Road, yeah.
Is that a Amber Road cafe?
Correct. It was like a restaurant. It was like a little cafe shop.
And did you figure out why they were walking in that direction?
That's where I think Karen had parked her car.
Did you have any concerns about Karen being able to drive that night?
I had talked to her all night, and I did not notice anything strange about her. Like, I didn't think anything of it.
And once you parted ways, where did you go?
I went in my car.
And what was your last image of seeing Karen and John that night?
It was just them walking towards the car.
If I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Brennan?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Was your last image of Karen and John, both of them walking to the car and Karen walking to the driver's side door of that car?
Correct.
That night it was a celebratory mood?
Correct.
Everybody was getting along fine?
Yes, we were. Yes.
You were speaking to the defendant for some time?
Most of the time, correct.
You saw her at points hugging Jen McCabe?
Correct.
You knew John.
I did.
He was a kind man,
Very kind.
generous,
Very generous.
thoughtful,
Very thoughtful.
soft-spoken.
Yes.
That night was particularly different. He was extraordinarily proud and happy, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And you could see him emote about his accomplishment that his daughter got into private school.
Correct.
Did you talk to John that night?
I did.
No further questions, thank you.
All right, Ms. Kolakithis, you are all set.
Okay, thank you.
So why don't I see counsel regarding scheduling? Just actually, Ms. Giannetti, just one question.
So I'm going to talk to the lawyers about scheduling. I'm actually going to send you back to the room and bring you back. We will definitely be out of here by 1 o'clock, so a short, and if they could just, or Paul, they could just go back for maybe 10 minutes and we'll bring you right back. So.
All rise for the court, please.
Court is back in session. Please be seated.
All right, jurors, I just realized that I probably made you go downstairs and up twice to just come back shortly. I'm sorry I inconvenienced you that way, but we were able to talk. I am assured not only are we on schedule, we are ahead of schedule. I understand tomorrow's supposed to be very hot. Court officers are concerned about how we're going to keep the fans and air conditioners going and be allowed to hear the witnesses. I've talked to the lawyers. Everybody's in agreement that because we're ahead of schedule, we give you tomorrow off. All right, so we won't be in session tomorrow. We will be in session Friday all day. So those same reminders, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, and read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. And be careful with your social media use. We'll see you on Friday.
All right. Jurors exit the courtroom. Please be seated.
All right. Is there anything anybody needs to raise with me at this point?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
There is one outstanding motion, it's a motion for reconsideration.
It's denied. Okay. All right. I just saw that that was the one that was still outstanding. Okay. Thank you all. We'll see you Friday morning.